So my question, what we're going to deal with today, is how does grace and the law of God work together? How do they benefit one another? The law and grace. That's what we're going to deal with today. Now, there were people in Jesus' days that thought they could earn salvation by works. They were called Pharisees. Now, I don't understand the mentality of this, the belief system of I'm not the brightest crayon or the brightest light or whatever, but just common sense tells me that how could I ever believe that I could be good enough to earn salvation? I mean, I just don't understand anybody that could ever come to that or believe that and see and actually believe it in their heart of hearts that they could be good enough to earn God's salvation. I just don't get that. But there were people in Jesus' day called Pharisees who believed just that. Now, let me tell you how it worked. How it worked was this. They had something called the oral law, referred to by Jesus as the tradition of the elders. Now, what was the oral law? The oral law was fence building around each one of the 10 commandments. That's what it was. And so it was their explanation, their interpretation of the law of God. In other words, the law of God said, keep the Sabbath day. And so they said, okay, what does that mean? How far can you walk? What can you harvest? If you're, and they actually had laws that said you could pick a few grapes off the vine on the Sabbath, but if you picked a cluster, that was sinning. So this fence building around the law of God is what they did. It was referred to as the oral law, or the tradition of the elders is how Jesus referred to it. And again, it was hundreds of additional laws that was added to the 10 Commandments. And if you kept every one of those hundreds of laws the way they defined them, you were careful not to pick, I'll pick a few grapes off the vine, but I'm not going to pick a cluster. If I pick a cluster, it's sinning. If you did that perfectly, kept this oral law perfectly, you could be saved. That's what they believed. Okay. They condemned. You remember the example of the man who was healed in the pool of Siloam, I believe. The man had been crippled all of his life. And Jesus comes along and heals the man. And he tells him, take up your bed and walk. And of course, his bed was not a 4-post canopy bed that you had to tear down and carry away with a U-Haul truck. His bed was just a little mat that he rolled underneath his arm, and he carried his bed and walked away. But the Pharisees saw it and they said, oh, it's not lawful for you to carry your bed on the Sabbath day. Now, where did they get that? Where is there in the Bible a law that says you can't carry your bed on the Sabbath? Well, there's nothing in the Bible about that. There's nothing in the Bible about how far you can walk. But yet they had rules about how far you could walk. You can't carry your bed. This was all a part of the oral law, the tradition of the elders that they had erected, that if they kept perfectly, they could earn their salvation.